Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Lots to get into. There was a blockbuster deal in the NBA. Yeah, we will address that. Luka Doncic heading to L.A. a little later. We'll get into the Steeler quarterback situation and how they go about finding the next man. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is the Penguins, who are making headlines because of a big trade they made the other day. And here's to discuss it with you is your panel. We have Jeff Hathhorn, sports director of 93.7 The Fan. In the middle, it's Chris Mueller, PM team on 93.7 The Fan. And it's Will Graves, who does his great work with the Associated Press. You could say Wanda.
Shout out, Wanda. You can go to bed now.
No, don't go to bed, Wanda. We're so
Want to leave your TV on, please,
Yeah, leave it
and
on.
then fall asleep to the dulcet tones of Will Graves.
Jeff, I want to ask you about this, reload, rebuild. I don't know what you want to call this because they still have a lot of older players on their roster who have no trade clauses, but they made a couple of deals, sending Drew O'Connor and Marcus Pettersson out west, getting a #1 pick, which I thought was the key in this whole thing, plus 3 players. Excuse me, your take.
Well,
I'm all choked up about it.
Yeah, apparently. I guess Kyle Dubas has been alluding to this for a little bit of time. We saw with Jake Gensel last year that they're willing to make a trade of a young player that's still in his prime. I think this was another good sign for the organization. I think the Jari was a sign. And if they get rid of a few more other players, that's great. They've come to the realization, even though at the time they were, 7 points out of a playoff spot, that, listen, this isn't going to happen.
Well, we also know that that's good that they've come to that realization and their play has kind of made that easy. But we know that Rutherford's coveted Marcus Pettersson since what? Like, how many years has it been since he's been lusting after Marcus Pettersson? Neither guy's probably going to get you the first-round pick on their own. Package him, get it. Now it's protected, lottery protected, but next year's draft is potentially deeper. So, it's depending on what you want to root for. But I give him an A for this trade. Start your movement here. Get first-round picks. Get young, right. Start shoving your chips in a direction that suggests you understand the task at hand and what's ahead of you instead of.
As long as you draft the right guys.
That's obvious. That has to happen. But at least there's an understanding here now, I think, on the part of the GM. This is what we have to start.
Well, I think there's a public understanding on the part of the GM. I think he's known since he got the job that, my God, how am I going to thread this needle of this team is old, it's not competitive. They hadn't won, when he got the job, they hadn't won a playoff series in 5 years. Now that's out to 7. It's going to be 8.
Catching up,
but he's trying to still appease people want to come out in this nostalgia. That's what the fans want, right? That's what Fenway Sports Group wanted until they apparently they're like, well, if somebody else wants to come in and alleviate some of the bills here, that'd be great. I think the good news is, look, they've got a lot of picks. They've got
29
over the next 3 years. That's good. But to Jeff's point, you got to hit Kyle Dubas. Considering what he inherited, has made steps. You have to develop these guys. And do we have any proof that he can do that?
We don't know. We know he has goalie issues everywhere he goes. He can't.
Although they're stacked in goalie.
No, I know. Well, one of them's got a. They were stacked in goalie when Matt Murray was here and Tristan Jarry was behind him, and they were trading Fleury. It can all change. It's a wild, volatile position.
Philippe Gustafson too.
I'm wondering though. Will brought up something. Hey, Fenway Sports Group changed their mind. I wonder if just seeing diminishing crowds, even with the nostalgia tour guys in full effect, maybe kind of scared them straight. Boy, people here aren't just going to accept that 87's in the lineup every night.
And I think that's one of the tough things when you're considering a trade, especially people who say now, okay, Letang, Malkin, look at any of them because their gate is more important than any other major sports league in North America. That gate is huge for these teams. So if they think 2,000 people will come out to see Malkin, or that won't come out if he's not there anymore, then that's a consideration. So I think this was another good sign that they're willing to do that. If they take on other comers, that's fine. I kind of want to know more of who they are. I would love to see a little bit more public, okay, who is really behind the strings that's making all this happen?
Well, let me ask you about
LeBron James, Jeff. He's a minority owner.
He is
minority owner, part of this team. They're not going to send out a big article or an advertisement in a newspaper like the Rangers did several years ago and say, hey, we're going through a rebuild. One should understand this. But they're subtly doing what they have to do. Who would be next? Because I got to believe March 7th is the trade deadline. They have a big two. They're going to make more.
Raquel is, Raquel is the most what you're going to get in return, right? You could get something for Rickard Raquel. The rest of it, when you sign these guys to no movement clauses, that's the other reason that Dubas has not been so public about this stuff, because his hands were tied before he even got the job, right? Because his 3 most tradable assets they have to give their full blessing to go anywhere. So I give him credit for sort of working around that. But the elephant in the room is still the elephant in the room. Their best players are the best players, but they're also their most marketable players.
Yeah.
And it's tough. And to Jeff's point, I'm not trying to derail, but man, the amount of times that I've been in there this year that it sounds like a library is startling because you're just so used to it. And I don't blame fans for bailing, because it's expensive. They have not adjusted the price of going to these games and can measure it with the product on the ice. Whereas you see other, look at the Baltimore Orioles this week or last week came out with like a cheaper, their concessions are going to be literally affordable. The Penguins, they do not care about that at all.
It's not like the new arena is a novelty because it's not new. It's 15 years old now. I mean, my wife is somebody who went to those games during the X generation when she was like finishing up high school. That dates all of us here. But she was like going on the glass for $15-20 because nobody wanted to go, and these were affordable tickets. I mean, I can say this as a guy who paid for a half-season ticket plan in the best years. We ditched it partly. Okay, we have kids, but like to Will's point, those tickets would probably be more expensive than they were when I had them. And what am I getting out of that? Bad hockey, mostly losses? You have to adjust. But as Jeff says, when your gate revenues are that important, even during the biggest years, they budgeted for a second-round playoff run at least. Where is your profit motive, or where are your margins where you can decide, okay, we're going to make this a more affordable in-house product here?
One question before we go. I got to make it quick, Jeff, just for you. The salary cap is going up appreciably. I mean, like $30 million over the next 3 years. How will that help them in terms of making this roster something that, can maybe, not wait 4 or 5 years before you see some of the return on this whole project of turning their season around?
I mean, theoretically it's going to help them, but our players going to want to come here? I mean, are they in a position where they can win now? I mean, I think that's one of the bigger obstacles. And do we know that Fenway Sports Group is going to spend to the ceiling? when you're in a rebuild mode, whether they say it or not, they are. Are you going to spend to the ceiling when you're rebuilding?
You can also, for a couple of $1 million, $4 million, you can get 2 pretty good players, 4 and 4, 8, and you're not even at the cap, right? I mean, they can do that. I know you guys, I said we have to go, and we have to go. So I silenced you in advance. Sorry you had to do it. We're going to take a break, come back. We're going to talk about the Steelers and how they pursue their next quarterback. It's all coming up next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, we're in that part of the season, off-season. There'll be developments, but it's going to be slow to happen. And the Steelers find themselves still trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. You know of the guys who are here. Well, I want to ask you about how you find the next guy, the next franchise guy. We've seen reports from the Senior Bowl this week that none of these quarterbacks has really done anything to improve their status. That would include Jalen Milroe, who a lot of people think the Steelers might be interested in. So do you wait until next year to do this, or how do you go about it?
Well, look, I mean, Jeff and I were in with Art Rooney this week. You got a chance to talk to him. It certainly seems like, that Justin Fields is going to be given an opportunity to come back and be the starter next year. I mean, that's what I read between the lines from talking to Art. And, he was asked, did you learn anything from the Kenny Pickett thing? And he said, well, that was sort of a one-off. You can't really extrapolate anything off of that. But I think the one thing they did learn, that class that Kenny was in, everybody was like, that class is terrible. And guess what? That class was terrible.
It was terrible.
And if everybody's saying this class outside of the top 2, and I'm not even sure about Shador, to be honest with you.
Well, to be honest, I've heard that in this year's class, the 2 best guys would be no better than like 6th or 7th last year, which was a much better year. So if that's where you're saying maybe Cam Ward's a real first-round talent, Shador doesn't have a strong arm. He's got an accurate arm. He's like a fringy guy. How about this? I've seen Jackson Dart, a first-rounder climbing in. I've seen, now PFF is one thing, it's many things to many people. They have him as a 7th-round graded player. They have him as like their 210th graded player. And other people are saying he's a first-rounder.
And I've seen legit mocks that have yours and Howard to the Steelers in the 1st round.
See, that would be a stretch.
A stretch?
Yes.
That'd be like, what's the guy's name? Mr. Fantastic?
I mean,
You'd be stretching across the
here's my point. Here's my point now. Do you, Jeff, go out and just because you need a quarterback for the future, draft one and maybe miss and waste a pick, whereas you can go, and there are several other areas of need here. Do it now, fix it now, and then wait till next year to do this.
As much as people will lose their mind, if defensive lineman is the best guy at that position in the 1st round, you take the defensive lineman rather than reach for a quarterback.
How about second or
we
third
saw
round?
them reach for a quarterback. We saw them reach for a center in Ben Roethlisberger's last year because they had a need, and we're like, oh, we got to draft. That's why there is some truth to them saying you don't draft for need, you draft the best player available. That's what they should do. If the best player available is Tyler Warren, draft Tyler Warren and figure out how he and Freiermuth can play together.
Well, I have a feeling that they'd play together where Tyler is the starter and Pat gets the snaps where he can. I know you just paid him.
What about Darnell?
It's a very deep defensive line class, and they need help there. I know it's not popular. They need help at wide receiver. They need help at many places. I would not draft a quarterback in a draft that's supposed to be this bad earlier than like the 4th round. If you want to do over a 2-year span what the Commanders did when they drafted Cousins in the same draft as RG3 as like insurance almost, do that. Take Will Howard in the 4th round. I don't care. Take him at pick 121 if he's lingering around. Then try to go get your quarterback next year. I think anything we know about this coaching staff, the philosophy of this organization, they need a guy who's so gifted they almost can't get in the guy's way.
Right.
I don't trust them to take a Brock Purdy type player or even a mid-round pick, guys, and get the most out of that guy.
And quickly, Justin Fields is better than any quarterback in the draft. So if you go with Justin, you're at the best player available. Right.
I mean, I just think that, you know, if you just watch them get punched in the mouth 5 weeks in a row defensively, like their needs are great. Like I don't think Jalen Mills, any of those guys in the draft is not going to be the guy that's going to take them to the promised land. It's not. And if they're not, then you might as well shore up, do what they've done for the last 10 years and try to build a team around the quarterback that can at least get you to 10-7.
Can I just say again, how many dollars are invested on their defense that got punched in the mouth? You're right to say that. $138 million. I mean, people's heads would explode because they'd be drafting to fill needs on a side of the ball they've allocated a ton of resources to already.
But wide receiver is still out there, Jeff. I want to ask you about wide receiver.
Period. You don't have to say any more.
Okay.
Wide receiver, because then you get a
fifth
year option.
In addition to keeping George Pickens and knowing that he may cost something, or do you try to trade George Pickens?
I don't even think about George Pickens. I probably think that he's not going to be there. So I need to have a wide receiver with a 5th-year option. So hopefully in the next couple of years you get that franchise quarterback, and then you get this hopeful star receiver for a couple of years.
But I asked Art this the other day, point blank. I said, do you have to reevaluate the way you evaluate your wide receivers? And I didn't name them, but I could have, starting with AB and on down the line. They have had a guy in there every year for, 10 years now? That's a pain, right? And if you're not the best in the league, then it's a problem. They got to move on from George. I think Art's response was like, every team's got a couple guys like that. I mean, but God, in the same room, at the same position, every team. Kansas City seems to have a guy that might have been a problem who's going to maybe win a second Super Bowl ring with them this weekend. So
when you win, then all that stuff gets minimized. When you win, that's why you didn't hear much about AB.
Just a playoff game.
When you win.
When you win. Just win, baby. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl, but later we're going to get into Luka Doncic, also who was traded in a weird scenario. We'll get into all that as we continue right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We don't often talk NBA, although I think we all like it, but this was kind of one of those trades that you can't not talk about. In case you miss it, Luka Doncic, 25-year-old, 5-time All-NBA player, traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. There are other people involved. Those are the two headlines. Chris, I know you're an NBA fan. I don't understand why Dallas would just immediately just call a team and say, we want to get rid of him, when you could have opened this up to the entire league and probably gotten the kind of return that some of these OK City people have gotten, which is to say multiple number ones, players, all sorts of other things. Is Anthony Davis really on par with Luka Doncic?
No, he's not. Luka Doncic, conditioning concerns you might have, and he does not cut the profile of like an Adonis-like athlete. Conditioning concerns aside, he still goes out there and plays. He's not like Joel Embiid, or he's not like one of these guys that's constantly missing games. I know he's missed a lot this year. He's not going to hit that 65-game mark for any of the awards that they have, but the guy is one of the...
He's averaging 28 a game.
The 5 or 6 most... How many... Ask yourself this, straight up in a trade, how many teams would say, how many players would you say, no, I don't want to trade that guy straight up for Doncic? Wemby's one of them, maybe Giannis still. There's not many. Point is, you want to know what this is? It's a salary dump. I can say it in 2 words. Salary.
They didn't want to go super max with him?
I don't think they did, because I'm not going to bore the viewers with things like luxury tax aprons and stuff like that, but it removes tax burden. They're not owned by Mark Cuban anymore. The Adelson family, Miriam Adelson, owns them now. She's a casino magnate. She might not want to pay up. And it's a dump of salary. And that's why they did it like this, because you don't want to have it out there to everybody. You'd rather just take whatever you can get and run instead of have a bidding war.
But, Will, I would have thought they'd be concerned about the return here, too.
Well, but I did see in one of the stories today point out that they are, who's the best team in the West? OKC, right? OKC. They are 3-1 this year against OKC. Guess what the one loss was when Luka played? They are a defensive, they are a solid defensive team when Luka doesn't play. And AD.
Oh, they were
AD,
very solid in their first game without him
well,
today.
I mean, like that's one of those
91
hangover
first
games,
half.
you know. I mean, like
They gave up a tidy
look, I am.
144.
To be honest with you, Rob Pelinka with the Lakers, like I give him all the credit in the world for pulling this off because like. You've now laid out your post
Didn't sound
LeBron
like he
time,
pulled
and you
anything
have to
off.
like you
Sounded
have
like he
to.
answered the phone and they
Sounds
said,
like
"You
Kyle
want him?"
Dubas answering the
Yeah.
phone from the Sharks and saying, "Here,
I wouldn't credit him
I
like
mean,
Erik
this.
Carlson."
You wouldn't cry. Are you kidding me?
No, only
Is he
because
gonna
I
be
don't
able to
think he
take
was the
time
guy
from
who.
Bronny, though?
The Mavericks generated this, and they wanted
Hey,
to.
Bronny had 5 on Friday and 2 yesterday, so I'm telling you, he's on. It's going to be Luka and Bronny in the backcourt for the Lakers in the next 10 years.
Luka's going to realize how many people are going to hate him over the next couple of weeks because he's a Laker now. They probably didn't even know who he was, but now that he's with LeBron, it's like, who is this guy? I hate him. He's a Laker. Why are they going to make this team better? It's funny. The first couple of tweets I got about this were, man, thank goodness Mark Cuban didn't buy this team, didn't buy the Pirates, because look, he's selling off players.
Not the guy anymore. Well, here's the other thing. I mean, how often in that league do you see a true, anymore in any league, like a true star-for-star deal? I understand there's financial underpinnings here. I follow some Dallas people. Luka was apparently building a house down there, or was planning on buying some new mansion, and so this clearly blindsided him. Tough day to be a Mavericks fan. You're in the finals last year. Right. That guy's carrying you to the finals over the Nuggets, who everyone thought was the best team in the West, and now see you later.
Yeah,
It's
just tough to stomach, I think, if you're a fan of that team.
I mean, very few things like make my 15-year-old stop and actually start a conversation with me. Okay, that's just how it is.
It was that tweet.
Like this morning when he saw his phone, he looked up the stairs and he just looked at me and he's like, "What, Dad? What?"
How many guys thought it was Luke Garza?
Right.
In
I
the
mean, if the players themselves are stunned, I mean, it made me miss Woj. I wish Woj was still working.
No. Woj was living blissfully. I hope he woke up at 8 a.m. and saw the trade news like everybody else. I hope he was in his little apartment above the bar
Woj is not in everybody's
St.
pocket
Bonnie.
either. Like, that's the thing. I mean, like I told my kid, as soon as like an hour later, I was like, Colin, there's going to be reports about Luka did this and AD did that. I mean, because everybody's trying to cover their butts here.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I'll just say, you're going to see, by the way, just an NBA like nerd tweet. LeBron can still obviously go at a high level, and Luka's a very ball-dominant player.
Right.
You're about
You're
to
gonna
see
need
how
two.
great LeBron can be, though, I think, at this juncture in his career, playing a little more off the ball and playing off of the younger, at this point, more skilled players.
It's hard to believe, too. He's a guard. He runs the court. He does all those things, despite whatever he looks like. You're right, the conditioning stuff. He still scores and knows how to do it. All right, we're going to take a break, come back and talk about the Super Bowl, which is coming up this week. That's next. Well, it's not the most intriguing Super Bowl out there. I think a lot of people wanted to see the Bills and the Lions or something else, but you're going to get a redo of what you saw a couple of years ago, which was a good game, 38-35. Philadelphia, Kansas City, Part 2. Jeff, how do you see this playing out, and who's going to be your MVP in this game?
Wow. Philadelphia has the better offensive line. They got the better running game. They have better receivers, and Kansas City's going to win.
I like that.
And will Travis then propose and get this whole thing to another level?
Oh, my goodness.
That's one of the prop bets out there, by the way.
I hadn't thought about that one. But
What if they broke up at midfield after the game?
How about if they lose and she says no?
I don't want to date a loser. I don't want to marry a loser. I think I'm not trying to go at you here, Bob. I think it's very intriguing. You have a team bidding to do something no one has ever done, to go three-peat in the Super Bowl era. I know Green Bay straddled the end of the NFL championship era in the first 2 Super Bowls, but the Chiefs are going for like true immortality here.
But I don't think it's a popular game to,
It's
in
not.
terms
So
of
that's the real
teams.
thing. It's not popular. Everyone wanted to see Buffalo, Washington. You're going to see a great story either way. I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think Jeff said it well. The Eagles have the best roster in football.
Mahomes.
The coordinator battle here on defense, it's a wash. It's the 2 best offensive coordinators. It's 2 elite offensive mind. Well, an elite offensive coordinator in Reed, and then Kellen Moore's pretty good. Here's the thing. Everyone saw them run over Washington, Will, and thought, oh, boy, that's a team that can't be stopped. Kansas City's got like the 4th best defense in the league. They are not going to just run
And even though they gave up 29 points last week, they made plays when they had to make plays.
That's a big boy football team, and that's why they're going to win.
I would say let's remember the Super Bowl that Kansas City lost when they lost to the Bucs.
Yeah,
and I think that the Eagles' sort of profile, especially defensively, how many times did Mahomes get sacked that game? Like 6, 7
Well,
times?
both of his tackle. I think Pony were basically his tackles, though.
I think it's going to be like that. I think the Eagles are going to keep that ball. I think whatever happened, whatever drama they had with Sirianni jawing at the folks in the stands, I think it's over. I think Kansas City is due to get thumped, and I think they're going to get thumped.
MVP is Big Dom, right?
I need an MVP. That's your
Jalen Carter MVP.
No.
I'll call it Jalen Carter.
Mahomes.
Mahomes.
I'm going to say Barkley. It's going to complete the year, and he's going to get the MVP he didn't get during the regular
Barkley,
season.
who's like a third-string receiver with the Chiefs, is going to end up winning the.
All right, we'll find out. That game is on Sunday. We'll be previewing it throughout the week on KDKA. And want to tell you about number 1 Cochran Ford. They have just added a 5th store. And to celebrate the new number 1 Cochran Ford in Youngstown, all of their Western PA locations have Ford Fab 5 grand savings for you. Pick any one of their 3 different $500 offers when you buy or lease a new Ford. It's this simple. Plus, enjoy 5 times the selection with more than 950 models available for you. You can get all the information at Cochran.com or visit number 1 Cochran Ford, Monroeville, Allegheny Valley, or Butler County. Earlier today on KDKA, you saw Rory McIlroy win at Pebble Beach. It's been the first time in a long time for him. Jeff, Masters is coming up. Is this the year that he wins that and completes that Grand Slam?
No, but I love it. If you're a golf fan and you didn't get to watch today, check it out because some of the shots were unbelievable today.
Yeah, if you have a chance to catch the replay, it's a course that plays under 7,000 yards, and they have to hit every shot in the bag. He is the best driver of the golf ball I think we've ever seen. But no, Scottie Scheffler's going to win the Masters. Right. It's in the script.
I mean, I think I think the Masters might turn into Phil's U.S. Open thing. I think it's just going to be this one thing that he's good at, but he doesn't quite win. That's what I think the Masters.
He's going to be one of the favorites, but you're right. Scheffler's probably going to be the man. That's
Hormones to the U.S. Open.
U.S. Open at Oakmont. Maybe Rory wins that coming up too. Good night, everyone. We'll see you next week right here on the Showdown.